you know that that's overwhelming. So you start hiring smart people to do some of the tasks. You get the marketing person here, the salesperson over here, the operations person, and all that. And
Mm-hmm.
almost inevitably, those people are not meeting the expectations of that entrepreneur almost every time. Right. So he almost always a guy that's
Mm-hmm.
leading this organization. Women get these concepts much better than men. So my client is a man for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And what he says, he comes in and says, hey, come in and fix my team. So sure, I'm going to work with the teams. And so I do work with mid-level managers, mid and upper level management kind of people in the team concept. But almost always, what the entrepreneur doesn't realize is that their team wants to please them and they just don't know how, and it's his fault.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Rexhen, and today's guest is Dr. Scott DeLong, a leadership coach, educator, and team transformation expert who helps leaders build trust, resolve conflict, and turn groups into high-performing teams. With over 30 years as an entrepreneur, educator, and facilitator, Scott specializes in guiding leadership teams through real work of alignment, fostering psychological safety, improving communication, and creating cultures rooted in shared purpose and accountability. His work equips managers to become true leaders, capable of navigating conflict, elevating collaboration, and embedding vision, mission, and values in everyday operations. And it's a pleasure for me to have him on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Dr. Scott.
Reginald, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we do here. So thank you.
It's a pleasure for us, Scott. So wanted to ask you, when it comes to your beginnings, first of all, what inspired you to become a coach and start your own coaching business?
Yeah, you'd mentioned that over 30 years, and I wish it was just over 30, but it's actually been over 40 years that when I started my entrepreneurial journey. And what I find with a lot of us that are aging, like that we're getting up there in years and that we like giving back. I've accumulated a lot of information, a lot of things that I've done that I wouldn't be doing anymore. And that's where the coaching piece comes in. So about 15 years ago, I went back to school. I'd been in business and I wanted to do some more learning, continue to learning. So I went and got a master's and then eventually the doctorate. And that, along with a couple other things that happened in my life at the same time, taught me a new methodology. And it showed me the things that I had done in the past that I wouldn't do in the future. This whole command and control leadership style that I grew up with. Frankly, everyone taught me that. Be the smartest person in the room, give the direction, have people follow orders, and everything will turn out. Well, it did for me, but I'm not sure that it did for everyone else. So this new approach that I've taken, which we call principled leadership, that has a lot of the progressive leadership styles like transformational leadership and servant leadership, some of the things that are embedded in there. But we've really focused on 3 different aspects of that. One is humility. Second is empathy. And the third, and might be the most controversial, is vulnerability. So our principled leadership surrounds itself with those 3 concepts that I didn't grow up with, concepts that I didn't know anything about, but I've learned in the last 15 years. And I want to give back to people that are coming through the system. And frankly, I want to teach some people my age too. Like some of the guys that haven't had the advantage of what I've gone through to see that my life is better now than it was when I was acquiring all the trophies and all the money and all the cool stuff, right? Now, trust me, I still like that stuff. I still like having cool stuff, right? But what I found is that there's a better way to get there, one that is more encompassing with the people that are around me so that they want to be there rather than have to be there.
Interesting perspective. Now, throughout these 40 years, you mentioned there's 40 years from LinkedIn. I was able to see 32, so that's why I probably
I've gotten older since that was updated.
Yeah. So for the last 40 years of doing coaching, what about it, like going through the coaching journey with your clients, what about it do you find the most rewarding since you started doing this?
So the stage when people bring me in, it's usually because they're in some sort of crisis. It's not that The folks that are saying, hey, I want to learn, it's the ones that have a problem is when they bring me in and dealing with conflict and things like that. And then fine, we work on that issue, right? But that's the micro issue. What I try to do is working on the macro issue and the situation that's brought these conflicts to that person. And there's a lot of resistance at first because my approach is to take my client and to tell them this one statement. Everything that we work on, it's 100% on you to work through. You can blame everybody else you want. You can point the finger out all you want. And sure, they may have some skin in the game and some issues that they've created, but it's 100% on you to correct that. Hopefully the other person's working 100% on them too, and it gets corrected faster. But even if not, and what we've learned is that when I take full accountability of an issue, I can control me. I can't control anyone else. But what it does is it allows me to be my best me all the time, or as often as I can, right? We all make mistakes, certainly. So what is the thing that is most rewarding to me? It's when that light bulb goes on over their heads and they quit resisting, quit being defensive, and all of a sudden they get it. They get this concept. Honestly, for me, it's like a hit of endorphins. It's like taking a drug. I leave that session just thinking, oh man, this is great. Like, I just love this work.
Awesome. And now for the audience that is listening, so typically in our audience, and I didn't mention this earlier, in our audience, there's a mix of two groups of people. There's typically the coaches who are listening, which is the audience that typically finds this information useful. And there's also the audiences of the coaches we've had on the podcast previously, because they either shared the podcast episode with their audience on LinkedIn. And so there's an audience there that is either leaders, executives that are trying to find maybe the right fit coach for them, just like in the podcast as well. Sure. So for that type of audience, can we clarify a little bit more the ideal client profile that you typically work with? Is it, now we did mention that is leaders, and we did mention, you also mentioned that they have some sort of a problem that they're trying to go through.
Right.
Now, I wanted to delve a bit deeper into is there a specific industry of these leaders? Is there a specific demographic, some common goals or other commonalities that you see? Like, how would you describe the ideal client profile?
Our typical client fits in the $5 to $30 million revenue range. Are entrepreneurs, typically entrepreneurs that are trying to move into a more professionally managed organization. It's a difficult process for an entrepreneur. And typically that entrepreneur hires me to come in and fix their people. Think through this, right? You're an entrepreneur and you're just killing it. You're wearing every hat in the business, and then you know that that's overwhelming. So you start hiring smart people to do some of the tasks. You get the marketing person here, the salesperson over here, the operations person, and all that. And almost inevitably, those people are not meeting the expectations of that entrepreneur almost every time. Right. So he almost always a guy that's leading this organization. Women get these concepts much better than men. So my client is a man for the most part. And what he says, he comes in and says, hey, come in and fix my team. So sure, I'm going to work with the teams. And so I do work with mid-level managers, mid and upper level management kind of people in the team concept. But almost always, what the entrepreneur doesn't realize is that their team wants to please them and they just don't know how. And it's his fault, that he's the barrier. He's the problem on why that team is not performing to his standards. So every time I start working with somebody hires me to bring it to come in and fix their team, ends up being an executive CEO for the most part, or the founder that ends up getting the one-on-one coaching because they need it to let these folks break free of whatever chains that they've been put on them or whatever barriers that are in front of them caused by this entrepreneur. They want to do a good job. I mean, they really do. Maybe they don't always know how. So I actually do some work with the teams. Great. But it's the entrepreneur is when that person gets it, is when things break free.
And so how, for that audience again, how is the engagement of working with you? Is there a certain program of a certain length? How would you describe the engagement? You did mention is typically one-on-one, but they also work with the team. So there's also some group there.
Everything we do is customized based on the needs, the objectives, and the outcomes that are stated by the person. So there's not just you got this problem, take this course, or you got this, let's do that. So we do what's called, we have three different three different methodologies, right? There's a workshop. People bring me in and spend a half day at a leadership conference with their folks, and there's a lot of learning that goes on in there. Great. People are pumped up and excited. But that's actually not the best way to learn, is to come in one and done. And what we found is that repetition matters. So we've created courses and we'll customize. So there's modules within course, and depending on what they need, like there might be something on psychological safety, something else on trust, something else on support and accountability. So we'll pick and pull the modules that are needed for that particular group based on those objectives and outcomes that were stated. And we'll create a 6-week course. A course looks like this. It's an hour a week. I'm sorry. It's 6 consecutive weeks for 90 minutes. And we use what's called a reverse classroom approach. The reverse classroom is this. I'll provide the content. I'm going to ask them to do a little bit of reading, a very little bit of writing, but a lot of reflecting during the week, reflecting before the writing. And then we get back together and I facilitate a discussion with the group. And it's actually the people in the group that are teaching the concepts. Now, I'll course correct where necessary, right? If they're way off base and it's not really resonating, then we'll bring them back in. But typically, if we have one piece of content that they've all read, and there's, let's say, 8 people in the group, you're probably going to get 4 different interpretations. A couple of people will be in alignment already, but there'll be other interpretations. And the learning and the listening that I can get from you, from your point of view, does 2 things. One, it expands my field of vision so that I can see things from a different point of view. But 2, it gets me to know you a little bit better and a little bit deeper and what resonates with you. So this reverse classroom is a really good approach. Generally, we work in quarter bands. So in a quarter, we might do 2 of these courses. So 6 weeks, take a week off, do another 6 weeks. And by the time we get through a quarter, the group's all fired up and they're ready to go. When we get into individual coaching, again, we work in quarters, and coaching is an hour a week, 11 weeks out of the 13 within a quarter, right? Because people take time off and working on schedules and all of that. So we do 11 sessions in 13 weeks. And then almost inevitably that extends to a 6-month engagement with those folks. And then what people will tend to do after that first quarter, then the second quarter, they'll keep me around and we'll do maybe once a month check-ins, or both with the group and then with the individuals that we're coaching. There may be times that they bring me in to deal with a specific conflict. For instance, you and I aren't getting along very well, right? And we just can't be in the same room. I'm really good at breaking that stuff down. So I come in as a facilitator, mediator to work through that conflict. And that happens within that, probably that next 6 months. Most of my engagements are about a year long. My goal is for people to get rid of me. I don't want to coach you forever because I want you to get it. I don't want to be your fallback. Oh, Scott will fix that. I don't want that. What I want is for the people to have the tools and the emotional intelligence so that they can replace me. They can get rid of me. So it's a quarter, usually 6 months, almost always a year engagement that we end up having at different levels, right? So the first quarter is probably the most intense financially for people. Second quarter, a little bit less. And the last half is a lot less, right? So that's how it tends to work with most of my clients.
It's interesting how typically, or most likely with coaches, they are working their way out of the relationship with the client.
A good coach will do that, right?
Yeah.
A bad coach won't. A bad coach will make you dependent upon me. Hey, you need me forever. You can't do this on your own. And I have had some long-term engagements. There's been 2 companies that have asked me to come in and act as a pseudo employee. One as the president in an organization, and then another one that is kind of the CEO light. So the CEO is still there. However, they defer to me whenever they have issues. And I don't mind that. I get more intimate with the groups and all of that. But honestly, the best thing to do is to get me out of there. And you can only get me out of it. Well, you can get me out of there any way you want, but you get me out of there because you get it. You've got the tools. You've got the talent now. You've got the skill set.
Interesting. And I really like the approach of like the reverse classroom. It just makes the one-on-one afterwards that much more powerful.
Oh, not only that, it's pretty selfish of me too, because I get to learn things too in the process, right? So almost always there's a perspective that I hadn't even considered, even though I've been doing this for a long time now, right? Somebody comes out with something because their experience, their background, their history, their consequences are different than other people's, and they interpret the content slightly different. And that's
Mhm.
pretty fun too, to get involved in that.
Yeah. So for my research, when it comes to you finding your clients, what marketing channel have you seen working really well for you?
Well, we've got a couple things that work really well for us. We put on a monthly webinar. We've called it an interactive workshop now because webinar means I'm going to sell you something, right?
Mhm.
So you get some people that won't show up to a webinar. And yes, at the end, there's going to be an offer and we're going to sell something. So that's an approach that we do. And we use LinkedIn a lot to market that, as well as our own database where we send emails. So it's a two-pronged process to get that. So it's a monthly webinar that we do. There's always a, special offer at the end. And that offer is just to get people's feet wet. We're not going to solve any, they're going to learn something on the webinar as well. I
Mhm.
make sure that I provide enough content, free content, that people say, wow, maybe I can try this. Then they try and they can't quite get it. Then they end up
Mhm.
calling us back. So the webinar is one process. The others, we've used a system that we call a quiz funnel. So we put a quiz, well, so we have these diagnostic tools that we use that are usually 30 questions. So in our quiz funnel, they're only 12.
Mhm.
There's only 12 questions that we use. And then we put people into blocks of they're a master at this content, whether it's conflict mitigation, emotional intelligence, your CEO, your COO, whatever levels that we put the quiz out on. And then we give them a 12-page report. And in that 12-page report, there's some additional learning that goes on there as well. But there's some things very specific. So if you rated really high on that quiz, self-report, and you're a master, great. You got it, dude. This is good. Keep up the good
Mhm.
work. The next level is one that suggests that you're almost there. There's a little bit more work. Now we've got some ways to help you. The third one is, well, okay, you're pretty good. You got some concepts down, but you really need some intense work in order
Mhm.
to master this. And then there's a fourth category that says, we call it in need of transformation. Those are people that didn't score very well, like
Mhm.
below a C and
Yeah.
below, right? And in need of transformation, and give us a call. We can help,
Mhm.
right? So that quiz funnel brings people in because it's kind of fun to take these quizzes. You get to find out a little bit about your personality and how you rate yourself and all that. And then someone else is going to analyze it and send back a report to say where you fit. And then there's some teaching in that report as well. Like you could learn things just from the report and
Mhm.
try to put those into play. So you don't have to buy stuff from us to get, like I said, as I gotten older, I like giving back. Yeah, I want to give my content away. I do. I do.
Mhm.
Sure, I want customers too, right? The people that need a little more intense therapy, I call it therapy because one of my clients once said, this is like therapy for business. Yeah, kind of like therapy for business. All right, great. So those that need a little more intense therapy or one-on-one or whatever, then I really want to work with those folks. I think there's three things that a good coach can do, maybe four. The first one is, and they don't get this, and CEOs in particular don't get this in their lives. The first one is we can help you reframe the concept. Like, here's how you see it. This is what you see. And I get how you see your background, your experience, but there's always another way of seeing something. So we'll help reframe that. The second one that we'll do is, and again, they don't get this very much at all, is challenge your assumptions. Well, here's what I think. Boom, 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 boom. And I'll say, okay, cool. And I'll never tell anyone they're wrong because that's what they think they should be doing. However, while we're reframing and looking at it, I'm going to suggest that that may not be the best course of action with the people that you're dealing with. And the audience does matter. Who is your audience that you're trying to get to? So I will challenge their assumptions. And the third one is to hold them accountable. A lot of founders and CEOs don't have that, not even at home, right?
Mhm.
So you tell me you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And I'll ensure that you do that. Or I quit or you fire me, one or the other, right? But I'll hold you accountable. And there's a fourth thing that a good coach can do. I can provide you some tools, some exercises that you can use to work on yourself. I am not going to give you the answers. I'm not a consultant. I'm a facilitator. I'm not going to give you the answers, but I'm going to challenge you to find your answers because your answers may be different than the ones that I would give you because your circumstances are different. Now, I'm going to try to understand those circumstances and try to lead you in a direction that I think is good for you. But you're a grown man. You get to make the decisions for your life the way you want to make them. I'm just going to help you get to those decisions through a self-reflective process.
And interesting. So we have the quiz, we have the webinars. Where is the traffic coming from to these funnels?
Word of mouth. Honestly, that's where it
Hmm.
comes from. Oh, you got to, like, I have people all the time say, oh, you got that going on? You need to talk to Scott. Oh, you got that going on? You need to talk to Scott. So word of mouth is by thought. Like I spend a lot of money on marketing. I really do. And yet most of my business comes because of someone that has worked with me, someone
Hmm.
that has seen my work, someone that has seen the results of my work, introducing me to someone. And that's a much easier sale that way too, right? So if somebody comes in through a quiz funnel, well, we got to sell them. Eventually we got to, learn more about them and then put some sales techniques onto that. But when people come in for word of mouth, about 98% of the time they become clients.
Yeah, I totally agree because they come already, they have built in some trust from the referral
Sure.
or the person that referred you
Yeah.
to them. So, just looking into like the goals for your business for the next 1 to 3 years, are you working towards some specific goals with the coaching business?
This is kind of a retirement business for me. I am 65 years old and but I'm going to work the rest of my life because I love the work.
Hmm.
So what I want to do is have enough clients that continue to stimulate me, people that I can help and give back to. So that's where the stimulation comes in. Certainly the we want to pay for the marketing. You spend 100 grand a year, you want to get some return on that, right? So we can't just do it for free. But my real goals are my number one goal, and the reason I got into this because I wanted to teach people in particular that came from my generation who learned and succeeded with this command and control approach to see that there's a better way. That's really my goal. Those are hard people to get to, though, because think about it. If you're a CEO and you're 60 years old, you've done pretty well for yourself, right? Why do I need to change? This is working for me. But the reality is, to get people to look and take a look, and is it really working? Are your metrics the right metrics? And I'm not talking about dollars and cents, although that's part of it, but the metrics on how you want to build your life and how you want to build succession plan for your organization. And if
Hmm.
everyone is dependent upon you, which in my former businesses, everyone was dependent upon me, what kind of succession plan is that? How's the company going to continue to go when I move on?
Hmm.
And so if you're looking for that, those are the people that I really want to encourage and get to. It's not who I'm getting to, frankly. Most of my clients are 40-year-old folks. Half of them, more than half of them are women, which I said, this is for men, like, because we don't get it. More than half of them are women. And there's a reason for that, I think. It is because what we, older white guys, taught women that they had to do to succeed in business, they had to become ball busters. They had to kick ass. They had to become all this masculine traits. And it
Hmm.
got them up to a certain level. That can get you up to a vice president level, but it was never going to get you in the C-suite.
Hmm.
What I work with them is converting that. What got them there isn't going to get you to the next spot, is to get them to understand more of the feminine qualities. And I'm not talking about sexual feminine qualities. I'm talking about humility, empathy, and vulnerability, things that women are generally better than men at. And I'm sorry to put people into blocks, but it's found it true. We taught some of these vice president women to be ball busters, and that's not going to get them that next promotion. It's not going to. And it's going to create a lot of resentment. Nobody likes women acting like that, except they're
Hmm.
producing, right? And if you want to become a leader, you have to have people that want to follow. And that ball buster approach, you're not going to get anyone to follow.
Interesting, interesting. And so right now, um, and you brought a good point that when we're thinking about people that are senior CEOs, they might be, let's say, kind of like more difficult to coach because they are kind of like pretty happy with what they have achieved so far, or
Yes
you
and
would
no.
say that's not exactly the case.
Yes and no. They're more difficult to get engagement with because they don't think they need it. Once those that are willing to engage, because they're not as hard to coach, because one, they're highly intelligent people, right? And when I get them and I get to tell them where the stories came from and how this matters, that they see things from a different point of view and they say, wow, you're right. I did miss too many of my kids' little league games. I didn't give my
Mm-hmm.
wife the kind of respect that I would give my customer. Like, some of those things translate, and they see that these techniques can not only help their business and their succession plan, but can also help their personal life, because we're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with the same sorts of issues. We're dealing with people, right? The people at home, the people at work are just people. And
Mm-hmm.
how do you inspire people? You don't do that by poking your finger in their chest and telling them what to do, which is how we grew up. It's what we learned, honestly. It's what we learned how to do. And for the company, it worked. At least short term, it works. Quarter to quarter, it works because we meet our goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way to meet your goals. Well, maybe your goals aren't in alignment with what your goals really could be and what you really want your own personal goals to be.
Mm-hmm.
So those CEOs that come in, yes, it's harder to get them to come in, but when they do come in, they are easier to coach because they want it.
And right now, looking at your goal as well, is what would you say is a challenge that you're finding um, in your coaching business that you're trying to solve for next? Since you want to continue this until you're fully retired.
Yeah, I think that is the challenge. If I'm stubborn enough to continue to want to reach people that don't want to be reached, which is partly guys of my age, they don't want to be reached with this. But I keep pounding on that and keep pounding it. But it's a challenge is my stubbornness to meet my goal, which is help enlighten some of the folks in my age. Whereas it is much easier to go down a generation or two. It's a much easier process. One, they want to rise and they want to continue to get better in their organization and all of that. And we've got some of the keys to get that to happen. So if I was strictly out for the dollars and cents, I would change my marketing approach to try to reach that mid-level person. Mid-level. When I say that, I'm talking about a vice president, right? That's trying to raise up. It's an easier to market to reach than the one that I keep pounding my fist on the table to try to get. Come on, guys, you can see this, right? You can see it. Like my life is wonderful now. It was good before. It's wonderful now.
Yeah. So kind of like when you think about it, your ideal client is you, like maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
Yep. And that's what I'm trying to reach. I'm trying to get, so I had to go through some things to get to that. And one of them, some of them are personally really challenging things that it was like, someone taking a 2x4 and hit me on the side of the head to wake up. I don't want people to have to go through that. I want to reach them before they get to that spot.
Cool. And I also wanted to get your perspective on, like, this would be like an advice that we're looking for. So an advice you'd have for coaches who are looking to scale their impact. And it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to think about who is receiving the advice. It could be a coach like you, but thinking about further scale of their impact. What advice would you have for these coaches?
The advice that I'd give to the coaches would be the same advice that I would give to the CEOs. The coaches we believe that we know the path and we know the right way and we know that we're going to show folks. The CEO believes the same thing. But the advice that I give to the CEOs is the same one I give to the coaches, which is this: keep learning, keep learning, keep learning, keep learning. Don't assume that your answer is the answer. It's a potential answer, and other people are going to help you reframe that as well. And sometimes those are other coaches. Like I've had coaches in my life that challenge me, think differently about this. In fact, I just got through writing a book, and I put this new book out to a group of trusted advisors, as well as some strangers, people that I've met through LinkedIn. And I said, critique it. And I really wanted them to critique it. I don't want you coming back and saying, oh, this is wonderful. What I want you saying is, oh, this part didn't make sense. Can you help me understand? Or I think you should change this because that didn't hit. Or that's the advice. Look for critique. Honestly, this is the thing that helped me grow more than anything, was when I changed my mindset on critique. And I don't like hearing it. Like I don't like hearing that I could be doing something. Like my face is like, oh, really? But I know I need to hear it. So when I changed the frame that said, when someone is willing to critique me, I'm not calling it criticism, I'm calling it critique, that they, at least from their point of view, they are trying to help me. It's a gift. That critique is a gift. The same way you as coaches provide critique to your clients, people can provide you critique because they're giving you a gift.
Thank you, Scott. For anyone who wants to connect with you or find you, they can go into LinkedIn and look up Scott DeLong, a PhD. They will be able to find your profile there. Is there also a website you want to send people to? I can imagine is lead2goals.com, which is the website, right?
They can do that, or they can send me an email directly and I will answer every email. Like I like this whole human connection thing matters to me. And I don't think email is the best way, but I just can't give my phone number out to the whole world, right? So you can connect with Scott at lead2goals.com as well. And I'm happy to answer any email that someone wants to send me.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. And we'll have our team also place that into the description of the podcast, the URL of the website, so they get the number 2 instead of 2. They'll find that there. But thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you on the show.
I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.